The movement was begun by a scientist who discovered, quite by accident, these signals being sent. Please understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered.
They want their weapon.
You have to wake yourself up.
Look out for Charlie.
I want that son of a bitch dead. I want him dead.
So I was on a much needed vacation. Went to Denver, went to Colorado Springs, went to Manitou Springs, and I did a lot of stuff, and I hadn't road tripped in a long time, and I really, really needed one. My odd experiences were to a minimum. I mean, we really didn't have anything happen. A few weird things that were debatable, you know. What I did while I was down there was a lot of family stuff and science stuff at the same time. For example, we went caving, and while we went caving and had fun, I was packed up with digital recorders. And I did this at the motel, at different areas, and I wanted to see what was going on within the ground, because I had heard stories, but they're just stories to me. Unless I can actually go through the original recordings myself, they're just stories. So these are, you know, these caves are deep underground, and you can't get a cell phone signal. And I didn't get to go through them until I got home. I got home a few days ago, and then that's when I really started to go through stuff and check it out. And I was amazed at some of the stuff I found. Even some of the weird things that happened, like in the motel, and then what was actually happening afterwards. And I'm going to go through that and show you. And I'm going to tell you right off the bat, if you're new here, this is not paranormal at all. At all. None of this is paranormal. And some of these are clearly physical reverberations of a physical signal. There is something out there, whether it is a harp type setup, that's creating a physical signal. Not a radio signal, a physical signal. And I want to check those out and go through everything with you. So we'll start out with some of the motel stuff. So our third stop was Colorado Springs / Manitou Springs. That was when it got kind of strange. When we stopped in Colorado Springs, one of the hotels was like, it was so fucked up and ghetto. There was blood on the sheets. Clearly people were using it as like a drug den and like living there. And there was no way in hell that I was going to let my kids sleep in that fucking place. So we ended up leaving and getting another motel in a really nice area, just outside of Garden of the Gods. So we were in Manitou Springs, and I started recording at night and in the morning at this place. For one, because it shut down really early. Like, this whole place shut down at 9, 10 o'clock at night. By midnight, it was a ghost town. And you could get these really clean recordings of the area, which you can't do around here. Secondly, because we were right next to a creek / stream that was almost like a small, like, rapids creek that went through this town. After like the first 2-3 days, we began to notice some weird stuff. Like, our phone in the motel rang twice and stopped. And we went down and asked them, hey, did you call for some reason? And they were like, no, we didn't call you. And no one called you. So we were like, okay, well, that's weird. Well, it wasn't until I got home and got to go through the recording that showed how weird it really was. Stuff like that. And then after a couple of days, we started seeing like a lot of people walking around there, probably 8 to a dozen, that were, you know, doing the talking to themselves and, you know, pointing their finger and flipping people off and, you know, clearly in the midst of being hit with signals. I mean, clearly. So that was when I was like, I gotta really strap up around here and get as many recordings and signals as I can. I want you to check this out. This is the motel when the phone rang and I want you to hear what actually happened, which I had no idea until I got home. Okay, so this is the motel, the little inn that we stayed at. Here is 2 rings, and then you're going to hear stirring, but when you hear the stirring, you're going to hear a voice come in about right here and talk. I'm going to play the whole thing once, let you check it out. This is when I start to wake up, right here. Okay, that's not me. So, here's a voice in the garble. Right there, I'll loop it. And then here's a voice that sounds like, you took my picture at Pikes Peak. I'm going to loop it. You took my picture at Pikes Peak. Strangely, I had driven the car up Pikes Peak the day before. And there's a voice saying, after 2 rings, you took my picture at Pikes Peak. And here's another strange thing that happened. When you get into Pikes Peak, the national forest, there is a Bigfoot crossing area. And then after that, a few miles, there's a gift shop. Then there's a midway point. Then there is a bunch of switchbacks that go up to the peak of the mountain, the summit, and then you head back down. All my photographs between the Bigfoot point and going up to the summit and coming back down, all my photographs and videos that I took vanished. All of them. Except for the audio that I was taking. So, after this phone rings twice, and this voice sounds like it says, you took my picture at Pikes Peak, all my photographs were gone from my memory card. All of them. And I took a lot of photos up there. Because they said, you can see the curve of the earth from the top of Pikes Peak. And I went up there and you could not see the curve of the earth from Pikes Peak. That's total bullshit. But there were a lot of cool things to see up there, and I was taking as many photos and videos as I could. And I thought that whole thing was just bizarre. Totally bizarre. So, here it is one more time. The voice sounds like it says, you took my picture at Pikes Peak. Is that paranormal? Absolutely not. There is nothing paranormal about it. In fact, I'm going to show you some audio from just the motel before we get into the cave stuff. Here, I'm still recording, and I'm jumping in the car real quick to head down, I think it's State Road 24, but I was heading out of Manitou Springs, and I was running down to an O'Reilly's Auto Parts to grab some light bulbs, because when we went up to Pikes Peak and went down, all of the brake bulbs in the back, the tail lights and the brake bulbs blew out. All of them. Pop, 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 pop. So, I had to literally replace like 8 bulbs in the whole thing. The only ones that didn't blow were the reverse lights, and that's because we weren't using them. So, I was hopping in, and in the car, as soon as I get in, you hear a voice, and then you're going to hear another voice as soon as I turn the power on to the car and get the key in. Is right before I hit the starter, this voice says something like, comet or comment, or something. So you're going to hear this voice here. Now, this is right when I start the car, and this loud voice jumps way up when the power of the car turns on.
Comment.
Hear that? Sounds like comment or comet.
Comment.
And there's nothing after that.
Comment. Comment.
there they are. There are the voices, and they're not paranormal. I can tell you that for sure. And I'll tell you why in this next clip. Now, I've talked about this in the past, but a lot of these voices you can pull out of a living room, a car, a motel, anywhere, and it sounds like they're coming out of a 70s reverb box. Like a 70s, 80s Fender amplifier, Ampeg, old school reverb box that plugs into a guitar. The whole thing. And it has its own reverb so that people can sort of latch on to the syllables and hear the syllables drawn out so they're not just pulses. This is one of those examples. This is at the motel, and you're going to hear a reverb box voice. Let me play it for you right now. But it literally sounds like it's in a reverb box. And there were no caves or anything that I was around at the time to cause reverberation. And then there's these weird noises here, which is clearly technology. That's not a ghost or a ghoul or a goblin or anything. So, this stuff is nationwide, and I know that we know that, but the point of all this is to get into the cave stuff and show you what happened on the cave and on the mountain. Here's one more example of the motel. There was like an hour of silence like this. You might hear like a loud car go by off in the distance, and maybe an airplane, maybe, for, an hour. And then this voice here is going to say good, and then you can hear me stirring after it says that. So let's check it out.
Good.
And then I begin to stir like somebody's waking me up. Let's play it one more time.
Good.
In fact, let's loop that good right there.
Good. 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 Good.
And then you're going to hear me stirring. So there was a lot of stuff that happened, and it wasn't just at the cave or the haunted forest or whatever the fuck people are talking about these days. It was everywhere. And if people would do that, if these paranormal investigators would fucking record in the middle of their town that they're staying in, like in the middle of Manitou Springs, in the middle of Colorado Springs, in the middle of anywhere, they're going to catch this stuff all the time. It's just circumstance that they're catching it in these places at night, because that's when they go, because that's when the ghosts and the ghouls and the goblins are supposed to come out. But I'm telling you, this isn't paranormal. This is a fucking weapon. This one is actually from the cave, and this is the first one that I want to start off with because it purely shows that it is totally and completely technology. So you're going to hear people moving around, some buckets and stuff, and then you're going to hear this absolutely 100% technological sound that I did not hear with my ears. I only heard it after going back through the recording, and I certainly would have heard this. So check this out. Right there. I called it the Star Wars sound. Check it out. It's no one's cell phone going off down there. There's nothing going off down there. It's loud. It echoes through the cave. Now, what this brings us to is there are no cell phone signals down there. There are no radio signals down there. You cannot get signals down there. We were deep into these caves. And it's not just this sound. I get all kinds of stuff on these recordings that are identical to the same things that I pick up in my home, the same things that I pick up in other people's recordings, and the same things that I picked up and pulled out from all around the globe, but they're underground. So, unless cell phone towers and other types of radio transmitters are putting out pure ELF, then this is something that is a multi-pronged system, like I've said before. I just couldn't prove it because I couldn't go down into a cave myself. I believe there is a send and receive, and the send is ELF, so you can't get away from it. I've gone right up to cell phone towers with meters and have not been able to pick up pure ELF yet. Okay, in this one in the cave, this female voice says, just like the kind of stuff I pick up in my house, says, he can't respect us. And then another voice that's male is in the mess of noise here. So I'll play this. He can't respect us. Let me loop it. And then there's another deeper, more robotized male voice in this. And then there's another voice after this, it's further off in the distance. But now I know 100% for certain, not from somebody else's experience or hearsay, that this goes right through the ground. Right through the ground. Here's another one from the cave. I want you to hear this. This is when I was standing still, and you can hear robo voices talking. Check this out. And if you want to listen to this more than a couple times, download the video and then rip the audio out of it and check it out. Okay, check this one out. And remember that these are all surface audio. I'm not even digging into the ELF yet. This is just surface audio, which I don't normally show. Normally I dig way down into the ELF and go for the hard stuff instead of the stuff that's right on top. But what you're going to hear is you're going to hear a guide in the background, and then you're going to hear a female voice right here say, that is a horrible idea. I'm going to loop it.
That is a horrible idea. 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 That is a horrible idea.
Is that paranormal? Fuck no. It's not a ghost. And those people that are going around doing this shit are acting irrational. They are. They're going around. Think about the technology that's going on today. Think about what they're trying to do with technology. Think about what Google is trying to do with brain interfaces and using human speech and subvocal human speech. Listen to this kind of stuff and then ask yourself, is that a ghost or is it something else? It's not a ghost. It wasn't just the cave. It was the creek, the motel, the whole area and the whole trip. I was picking this stuff up on my whole road trip, my whole vacation. And remember, if you can't hear this stuff, don't listen to it on your phone. Use headphones or decent speakers. Okay, here's an example of a voice in the cave, and then you're going to hear a voice here, and then you're going to hear the straight up against the mic voices here. Check this out. Now, this is an example of something that isn't one of these voices. This is a cave guide. Some woman goes to talk very, very low. and you can hear the cave guide go, shh. So I want you to hear how little of noise is needed for the cave guide to shut you up. Check this out.
Because it goes up there. That rope is not the original. Shh, it's a replica. Okay. There used to be a ladder, and
It's so low.
that rope is not the original. Shh, it's a replica.
She barely spoke. So those loud voices that are going while the guide is talking are not the guide or anyone around her, because she would have told them to shut up. Okay, here's a great example of these voices riding on noise. Check this out. It's going to go through and a voice is going to say, fuck you, and I will loop that spot. Here we go. Okay, right there. It says, fuck you. But listen to the bucket that someone is carrying next to me. You can hear the bucket making the noise at the exact same time as the voice says, fuck you. Because this stuff rides on noise on an auto gain system, and they know this. But it clearly is a voice as well. So check it out again. I'm going to loop. So it's clearly riding on noise. Here, a voice right before this guide talks quickly says, I want to see my family.
Thanks, Doctor. Thanks, Doctor. Thanks, Doctor. Thanks.
See, this is not paranormal. So if people do happen to hear this or see it in a recording or on a video, they freak out and they put it on YouTube, and then more people come to investigate it and pay to spend the night down in the cave, and it's total and absolute bullshit. I'm sorry, but even the real paranormal stuff that could be down there is being covered up and subverted with these signals. With these signals that create very real vibrations and very real voices down there. Okay, here a voice is one of those deep up against the mic type voices, and it sounds like they told me. Let me play it. And how is this created? Auto gain. Here's another one of those voices that sounds like it says, power to the people. So maybe some 60s Black Panther type dude went down there and died in the caves, and he's still haunting the caves in 2021, yelling power to the people. Or some hippie died down there. Is that the case? Fuck no. So, here we go. Power to the people. And if you listen, these types of voices have their own static to them. Some of them have their own reverb. These ones that are right up against the microphone seem to have their own static and their own noise to them. And these are also the wind type voices that people mistake for wind. You know, they can rumble until you take the really low frequencies out and realize that it's a voice. And they seem to have their own static to them, their own noise. This is important because we're not on the ground. There are no cell signals. There are no Wi-Fi signals. There is nothing. It is just riding through. Electricity? Possibly. Flat out electricity traveling through the rock. So let's play this voice. It's female-y, and it's one of those room voices that sounds like it's in the room with you. Did I hear it? Absolutely not. Here we go. And if you listen, the same thing as everywhere else in the nation. The inflection is screwed up. Everything is screwed up on it. It's not quite right. It almost sounds like it's going backwards, but it's forming words forward. They will break up words like this, and it will sound pretty robotic and computerized. Not paranormal. Okay, here is one of those weirdly inflected voices saying, I'll make some noise. So I'll loop it. I'll make some noise. What's with the weird upward inflection here? Noise? Like, it's really weird the way everything is inflected with these. Clearly not human and clearly not a ghost. I'm going to show you a couple of the notes in a second here. Here's one of the voices quickly saying he isn't crazy. Loop it. And if you pay attention, listen to the tapping of the bucket. Tap, tap. It follows the main syllables of the sentence. And that's what I've been telling people for a long time. This is an auto gain system that rides on noise. It's obvious in these because there's no other noise down in these caves. There's just the tapping of that bucket. So there you go. This audio, the mountain and the cave and the town is so littered with voices, which explains why so many people were walking around talking to themselves and flipping people off, that there's going to have to be a part 2 to this as well because there's so much to it. Here's another one of these voices right up against the mic. I wanted to push it up a little bit so you could hear it easier. Check it out. Not cell phones, not paranormal. Here's a whisper. This one sounds like it says, write my song or some bullshit. Listen. Not a ghoulie, not a ghost. Here's another tech sound down there that doesn't belong down there, that I did not hear, that no one heard. And it showed back up just on the recording. So check this out. Technology at work. Okay, here's an example of notes down in the cave system. So walking through, and you're going to hear what sounds like a stringed instrument. Check it out. There's nothing before or after it. It's just that note down there. Here's another spooky Scooby-Doo cave voice. It sounds like it says, I will take him, and then something else. Here, I'll loop it. Those are signals that is riding on stuff. It's just amazing to me that this is in the caves, and it really is in there. Like, I thought maybe it would be weaker, but it's actually stronger underground. So that really, really backs up a lot of stuff. And this voice sounds like it says, find somebody, find somebody. But, you know, the usual warped inflection. Check it out. So now I am way up on the mountain. At this point, I'm probably at about 9 or 10,000 feet. And here is one of those same type of cave voices talking out in the open while the sun is out, not during the witching hour. Check it out. It's almost identical to the voices down in the cave, but it's a little crisper, and you can hear a little bit more treble. Okay, here is more from the mountain. This proves a lot. The cave, the mountain, and it really brings up the question, why do people even try to run when they get hit by this? The signal is everywhere. They're not beaming you. You're going to get hit no matter where you are. So just buckle down and stand your ground. Okay, in this clip I say, all right, and then I start the car, and then you're going to hear a bunch of voices talking. Watch.
Alright.
Okay, that was me. I start the car, I say, all right. Then listen to what happens.
Alright.
That's on a mountain at like 9,000-10,000 feet at that point. So you're not going to get away from it. A cave, a mountain, the signal is everywhere. The only option is getting this crap off you that makes you sensitive to this kind of shit. Here you're going to hear my kid talking. And then you're going to hear a voice here say, it's beautiful country. All right? Now, I did not say that. That's not my kind of term. It's a voice that says it's beautiful country. Check it out. Then, here's where it gets ominous. Right there it says, we're going to try and get closer. Listen to that. Now at that point, I was way up Pikes Peak, way up the mountain, and this voice says, we're going to try and get closer. We're going to try and get closer. That's just amazing to me. Here is one more version of we're going to try and get closer. Check it out. Now at this one, he says a voice. I'm not going to say he. The computer or whatever is talking says, I can hear he's with something, a family or something. Listen. Obviously, it's one of these voices because the inflection is weird. Everything is weird about it. And I didn't go through any experiences on the mountain at all. No weird sounds, nothing. And probably because I don't fall for that shit. I wouldn't believe, a Bigfoot sound or something. If anything, I would go running at the sound, trying to capture it, not running from it and get myself lost. It says there's some building. So no matter where you go, whether you can hear them or not, these voices are going to follow you. Now here, this is me. Then after this is not me. Check it out. Now it sounds like something suicided. Now here's the suicided part. But I'm just guessing at that part. Here you're going to hear the car accelerate, and then this voice says, there's other people with him, slowly and robotically.
Yep.
It's very warped. It says there's other people with him. It's really robotic-y and weird. There's other people. Other people. So these voices are everywhere. The altitude doesn't matter. The depth doesn't matter. They are everywhere. And now I know. I've heard this before, but I had to prove it to myself. I had to travel around the West with recorders attached to me everywhere to really see the extent of how these signals travel, where they can travel, how they travel, do they get weaker, do they get stronger. Okay, here is a voice that clearly says, in a very ominous way, very computerized as well, it says, put cameras in their bedrooms. We had a 2-bedroom motel. Check this out. Put cameras in their bedrooms. Very ominous sounding, very spooky sounding. You know, was it trying to scare me? Or are people really that hell-bent on putting cameras in your bedrooms when you're on vacation? And they had to send this on top of a mountain? Come on, man. Okay, here's a long version of what I just played. Put cameras in their bedrooms. Okay, now I'll play the rest of it. This is what continues. Now I'm not sure what that one says. Could make it look like something. And then it continues here. So, that's what you get on the mountain. Okay, this voice, and I did stop a lot on the mountain, a lot. I spent a lot of time up there, 2 days actually. And in this recording it says, they just stopped to look at something. They just stopped to look at something. So, what is this? I believe that it's a surveillance system that is surveilling every move that everybody makes on the planet. Wherever this signal is being projected, people can be basically tracked, sonar in a sense, and it is reporting on what you are doing in a computerized way. And if something comes up red flaggish, then someone will actually come and physically look at it. Unless they were planning on taking me out when I was on the mountain or in the hotel, I don't know. I'm just saying, unless that's the case, then it's just following your every move. I can hear he's with something. Now here's more robotic talk, and you can hear that it's a computer. It is not a person, it's not a ghost. I say here, look out for snakes, and then you're going to hear the computer voices go at it. Look out for snakes. That is a computer voice. It's a digital computer voice. Look out for snakes. So if you hear this shit out in the forest, out in the national parks, wherever, don't run. Do not run. Now here's a voice that was clearly trying to spook somebody, and it just says, "What are you doing?" trying to scare people. That's what they do. They scare you. They freak you out. When they do this to people for a long time, people do crazy things that they wouldn't normally do. A la James Holmes. Now here's a second version of What Are You Doing that I tweaked. Listen to this real quick. It's easier to hear. Now, if I heard that, I would think someone was around me, around where I was hanging out, around my camp, whatever the situation was. Nobody's really there. If you've ever been up to Pikes Peak, there's a Santa's North Pole place that we stopped at just to check out the building. When I pulled up, I got out and wanted to take a photo of the creepy Santa Claus that is on top of this slide. And while I was taking that photo, there's this voice here that says, "Deck the halls with balls of holly." Check this out. And you can barely hear it. It's kind of in the background, but it says, "Deck the halls with balls of holly." Deck the halls with balls of holly. It's behind the raspier, creepier noises. It was an experience, and I'm glad I went on vacation. I feel way better. I really needed that. But there's going to be a part 2 to this, but I wanted to show you all this crazy shit that I picked up on this trip and what it proved to me. Even though I had heard this before, this really puts things into perspective, because I know that the altitude doesn't matter, which I picked up before. We picked this up at like 55,000 feet, but this was at somebody else's recording that I was working with. These are my recordings. You know, I picked stuff up at 14,000 feet. I picked stuff up at 10,000 feet. I picked stuff up way underground. It is awesome to have experienced this, and didn't even set out to really do it. I just wired myself up because I was on vacation and we were doing these things anyway. So there'll be part 2 to this, and then I've got a lot of videos that I need to put out. I've got a new one that I've been trying to finish since before I left here. So talk to you soon. Look out for Charlie.